Hi, this is Mike Kelleher. I just wanted to share with you a video I made on a bridge case that we recently did here in the office utilizing the Nevo scanner and the new Emax E4D bridge block. The Emax bridge block gives us a nice bit of versatility, allows us to do some cases here in the office that otherwise we'd be sending to the dental laboratory, which for the patient means a shorter wait time to get their bridge, or you could even do the case in a single visit. So hopefully you'll pick up a few things from this case presentation and you'll find it helpful. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to run through how to set up a bridge in the E4D software. So we're looking at the new version of the setup screen. Looks pretty much the same as the old one with the exception of an addition here where we have Pontic as a restoration type, and over here we've got the two bridge buttons here, link and unlink. So what we'll do first is to set this case up as if it's just a regular multi-unit case. 230, we're going to just tell the software that it's a crown and that we're using library A, the Emax CAD LT, shade A3. We're going to tell it the same for tooth 29 with the exception that's a Pontic. And then tooth number 28, again, a crown with library A, Emax CAD LT, and A3. We don't have anything available other than the LT blocks right now with the bridges, so that's kind of what we'll have to use. The next thing we'll need to do is to just tell the software that this is a bridge, not three individual crowns, and that's what these buttons over here are for. We'll click the link tab here, and that'll bring up this little tool. And what we want to do is just click on the first and last tooth in the bridge, and it will change all those teeth over to this pink color, showing that that's now linked together as a single restoration. And then we're good to go. If you make a mistake and you link in wrong teeth, or do like I did the first time and try to click all three and it only linked up the first two teeth, you can click unlink and click anywhere on that bridge and it will bring it back to the green shade of single restorations. But again, just link, click on one end of the bridge, other end of the bridge, and it will turn pink and you're good to go. So we'll come over to the scan screen. And over here, this is the Nevo scan screen, and a lot of different changes here. We have all of the model types over on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have some of the other familiar tools we have here. The impression mode, low data, ice view. This is our buccal bite alignment. This is a clone alignment here, bite registration alignment, and the editing tools down on the bottom for the model. Anyway, so we'll come over here. This is our prep model. This actually was an impression case that we took a model of the tooth before the Nevo scanner had arrived. But we decided we'd go ahead and use the Nevo to scan this in and do the case in-house rather than sending out to the laboratory. So we've got nice ditch models here, so very easy to mark our margins and to deal with the case. Very important here. We used a full arch impression as I would for a bridge case. Same if I was sending to a laboratory. I'm going to do the same digitally as to have full arches for bridge cases. When you're scanning in full arches, you want to make sure you start and stop in the same spot in both the prep side model and also on the opposing model. So in this case, if we were to begin our scanning on tooth number 31 here and work around on the opposing, would want to make sure we started scanning on the upper right hand side, work our way around, and make sure we're giving the computer consistent information. And then buccal bite, very simple, just the buccal surfaces of those teeth. And you can see our little green dot here indicating that we have a successful alignment. Still want to double check that, so we're going to click here, because every now and then you'll get a green dot and the alignment hasn't really done it correctly. So we're going to check it, and we can click on this little eyeball icon, and that will remove the virtual bite registration for us, so we can check. And we can make sure that bite alignment looks like it should. In this case, it looks really good. Buccal, you can also do internally and check to see if we're seeing nice even articulation. That's what we are in this case. So that looks great. We can move over to block more margins. Before we do that, we do have to close the line buccal tab. The software opens one of the advanced principle. So now we can go to the margin. And pretty straightforward. We're just going to go ahead and mark our margins. So that's looking pretty good. Now, what we will want to do is to orient each of these units individually. Now, important to note that whichever the first restoration or first unit that you orient, that's what's going to control the position of the restoration in the block. So if you do run into trouble once you get into your milling screen with the restoration fitting into the block, you may have to come back and nudge the orientation on whatever the first tooth was that you oriented to make sure that's working out properly for you. So we're going to check our orientation. And again, just the same way we would with any case. So this I've already oriented all these already, but we'll check the buckle, check it from the occlusal, check from the distal, and everything is oriented there the way I'd like it to be. So we lock that down. We'll do the same with 29. You kind of get the idea, so I won't go through all three of these. What I do like to do, though, before I jump over to the design screen, is to use the green ghost tooth to see that everything is what I expect it to be. So I drop the green ghost tooth in, and of course it's way off the ridge, but I can see here that that is something I'm going to be able to position in design into the right spot, making sure that that central groove is lined up nicely, and I'll check that green ghost tooth with generally any restoration I'm doing here. So I drop that in position. Again, what I'm looking for here is that central groove aligned nicely. Are the marginal ridges nice and level? No cants to the buckle or to the lingual. Okay, so now we'll move over to the design phase of the bridge, and this is going to go pretty much like a regular multi-unit case, with the exception of the Pontic here. And also to keep in mind is you won't see the units linked together until we actually get over to the mill screen, so don't worry that you're not seeing that. So we're going to go ahead and use the Alt and arrow buttons to resize our proposal here, make this an appropriate size for that tooth, and position it. And this, we could actually put this in and not use autogenesis, or we could use this trick and autogenesis together. I tend to do this resize, reposition, and autogenesis together, and typically that gives us a pretty good proposal. So that's what we've done there, is I've gotten that in position, resized it. Now we'll let autogenesis take over and bring our restoration into place. By resizing and positioning, we've kind of given the autogenesis a head start. It's now going to start figuring things out from the position we started with, and now we get a nice restoration. I've left this a little bit high here because I know this is a bite opening case where this tooth number 31 was not touched, but we did open the bite throughout the rest of the mouth, so this is going to have to be a little bit high relative to tooth 31, so that's why I've put that in position there. So now we're going to do the same thing over on tooth number 28. We'll use the Alt and arrows to kind of resize our proposal, place that into position. I'm not worried about covering the margin with that. I'm just wanting to make sure I have that in the right spot and let autogenesis fill in and bring the restoration down to the margins. Again, you see how that proposal kind of jumped to the position that we started at. Now it's just having to kind of tweak things a little bit. And let's see if we should have two reasonably good proposals there. Yep, not looking too bad. And now we're going to do the same thing for the Pontic. And again, Alt and arrows to resize that. And bring that right down here. So one tweak I would like to see in the software at some point would be for the proposals to stay in place that we've just done, to see those proposals, so it would help in a case like this to be able to position our green tooth so we know relative where that crown ends. It's making it from memory, but I think we're pretty close there, so now we'll let autogenesis take over and bring it in position. It's finding that margin that we drew down on the stone for the Pontic in the surgery. And then once it's finished with autogenesis there, it'll bring back our other neighbors. You can see we've got a little bit we need to go. So I've cleaned up the proposals just a little bit here and moved over to the mill screen. And one of the things you'll notice on the mill screen is any areas where the material thickness is questionable are going to show up in red. Of course, with bridges, much more important to make sure that we have good material thickness. And here we're looking pretty good. Our material thickness, aside from a little bit right at the margins here, looks to be right where we need it to be. So no problems there. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is to do a mill sim. We want to make sure that we have proper connector thickness. So I've already done the mill sim here. And what we want to do is to use slice plane, click it twice, and then slide ourselves over to these connector spots. And what we're looking for here are 16 square millimeters of connector as a minimum. So each of these blocks, this is showing us 2 millimeters square blocks here. So we've got 4 of those. So that's 2 by 2 is 4. So we've got 16 plus, you know, obviously the partial blocks here. So our connector is nice and thick on the premolar, and our connector at the molar is a lot thicker. So I've got no worries there. That's going to be a good healthy connector in on the molar without any trouble at all there. So that looks real good. And we also want to check internally to make sure we don't have any binding points. On this case, I know there was a spot in the preparation when we did this clinically where we had to make an adjustment right in here. Not a big deal, but there was a little sharp spot on the prep, but good to know that. Otherwise looked good. We had nice even spots in here. This actually, we couldn't open that up anymore. The defaults for the spacer are 0.2 for bridges, and it can only go up to about 0.3. So even opening that up a little bit more, we still have that spot. So we easily adjusted that on the day of the insert for no problem at all there. And again, first time you're going to see the connectors, and you know, from using the E4D, this is not what your final mill will come out looking like. This is just the simulation. Now, so when you do get the bridge out, a couple of really important things. One is, as tempting as it'll be to kind of come in here with a diamond disc and kind of clean that up and try to make that look nicer, you don't want to do that. That will induce some fracture, some microfracture into here, and is a big no-no in terms of finishing the bridge. So you got to be real careful with that. You know, I'll use some fine diamonds around the edge just to clean it up a little bit. You know, a little pointed diamond or something, just to take if there's anything sharp in here from the edge where the two tools meet. But really, I try to leave these connectors alone. All ceramic bridges, they have thick connectors. That's just one of the things that has to happen with an all ceramic bridge. So be careful with that. Now, other thing to notice here is sprue position. If we look at that sprue position, of course, we're trying to go into a block and get 3 units into it. So sometimes we can sometimes move. You can see here the B32 block is fitting in just fine. And we may be able, in this case, to swing that sprue out into a position where it will come off of the contact. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. In this case, I think we would be able to get that to fit into the block with the sprue off the contact. But really, the only places you can have the sprue, obviously, are going to be kind of right up towards the mesial. And of course, you see here when you come way off axis, now it's telling you that the bridge is not going to fit in the block. You can come straight off the distal. So maybe if there was no posterior tooth behind the bridge, that would be a great spot to put the sprue. But I think we ended up going right about here, as it gave us a spot that was high above the margin, and we still were able to stay pretty much off the contact there. So position the sprue, and then you're going to go ahead and send this off to the mill just like any other bridge, or any other restoration rather, and it will mill out. Mill times on something like this, you're probably looking at about 35 to 40 minutes total mill time to get this out of the mill. And you know, we've been finding the fits to be very nice and accurate. No big problems with that at all. Finishing, in terms of staining and glaze, you want to make sure you use the regular paste glaze cycle. This is 3 units, so you can't put this on the fast fire with the paste glaze. It's just not, or even with a spray glaze, because it's too big a restoration. So you have to go back to the 24-minute cycle. And what I've been doing with these
Here's some clinical photos of the completed case.
Glaze them,
you notice even with the LT version
grab
of the Emax, we
with
get
a
extremely
hemostat
nice
back into
aesthetics.
one of these
Mill
areas
does a
here,
great job with the
do the
anatomy,
staining glaze on
and
the,
in the
on
end,
the
it's a really
preparation- on
nice
the,
case. Patient was
the
extremely
Emax,
happy with it.
and then set 2 pegs into the tray, kind of seeing, you know, approximating the spots on the restorations, and then just put a little dab of object fix into here after I've got it all stained and glazed, set it down on the pegs, and then just touch up the spot where we had the hemostat on here holding it, and then drop it in the oven, and it seems to be working out pretty well. So that's the design and mill portion of things here.